Welcome to What Are You Sporting About podcast, a podcast about business, employment, sports, and entertainment to help educate, support, and guide you to your next level. Here's your host, attorney Sivon DeBarros.
Hey guys, welcome back. Thank you for listening to this podcast. You are speaking or hearing Sivon DeBarros, the protector of athletes. And today I have Taj Dashaun with me today. Hi, Taj.
Hey, Sivon. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
No, thank you for joining. You've been doing some amazing things, and it's been a while since you and I connected since the first time. But I'm so happy that you decided to be a guest on this podcast. So tell us a little bit about you and your former history as a athlete and where you are now.
Absolutely. And I love, by the way, that you introduce yourself as a protector of athletes. You know, I feel the same way. I look at myself as a protector. I look at myself as the light at the end of the tunnel for athletes who are lost. A little bit about my background. I won't go into all my stats and all that type of stuff and bore people to death. We're not here for that, you know. I played football at Stony Brook University. Once I graduated, really had a hard time. I mean, I knew I wasn't going to the NFL, but I really struggled just to figure out what my next steps in life were going to be. Once I started to get clear, I started leaning into just like working with people, doing recruiting, helping people, and eventually decided I wanted to branch off and start my own business using the skills I had acquired throughout my career path. And I realized that there was a need. I had a lot of teammates reaching out to me, a lot of former teammates, a lot of guys I grew up with, like, hey, Taj, man, we're lost. We're really struggling to figure out who we are outside of the game. You know, you're having all this career success. I'm back home working at Home Depot. Like, help me out, man. So I started doing some research, looking at what resources were available to former athletes, and saw, you know, virtually nothing, especially on a collegiate level. So I decided to create something on my own. That's when Thrive After Sports was born. And basically for the past 2.5, almost 3 years, I've been working as an athlete, career transition coach, helping former athletes just map out the next steps of their lives, land jobs, start businesses. Anywhere they need direction, I'm there to support them. So much like yourself, I'm a protector of athletes too.
Yeah, that is amazing. I love it. So Thrive After Sports. Now, I know you have a podcast with that name. So Thrive After Sports, is that also the name of your business where you promote this support for athletes to help them transition?
Absolutely. That's the name of my program. And as you mentioned, I do have a podcast. The podcast is called Thrive After Sports. Please go check that out. Available on all podcast platforms.
Yeah.
The program itself, Thrive After Sports, is actually the curriculum that I have. So when I started out coaching, I didn't just want to be on the phone, just kind of chopping it up without having any structure or systems in place.
Right.
So I put a lot of time, energy, and effort into developing an actual curriculum. I even consulted with some friends of mine who are clinical psychologists, just so I can make sure I had research and information and techniques, exercises, and things to help get former athletes through, you know, just the loss of identity and help them navigate those waters what they're dealing on an emotional level before we even dive into talking about, you know, going into business or their career path. Because I want to make sure they're firing on all cylinders and in a good place mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally before we even dive into all that. So yeah, to answer your question, Thrive After Sports is the name of the program, and also the name of my podcast and my upcoming book that I have coming out. It's called Thrive After Sports as well.
Nice. I want to touch on something you said, loss of identity. Now, you would think a athlete already identifies themselves as an athlete, right? So in at one vein, there is a identity there. But we've also seen time and time again too, once that sport is over, because athletes who've made it to the pros, they focused on sports, like from the beginning of time when someone realized, oh my gosh, this kid has the ability to be a professional athlete. So when you say loss of identity, are you saying loss of identity in the sense of you've only recognized yourself as an athlete, or loss of identity for when the sport has ended and now you know you don't have any idea what you're going to do with the rest of your life?
That's a great question and some great points you brought up, Sivon. And I think in my opinion, the answer to that question is both. meaning loss of identity with no longer being an athlete and loss of identity in terms of who am I now, right? And I know your work is focused primarily on professional athletes, and I work with some professional athletes as well, but my focus is on, players at the collegiate level. And you see that, it's very similar, just like the loss of identity is similar between a collegiate player, a professional player, or even when you consider folks who are in the military, folks who are in the military, it's the same type of transition where, I always say it's like you've been raised by the game. Yeah. Anybody who played at a collegiate level or professional level has probably been playing since before they hit puberty. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yep. To be able to spend those years developing it. So yes, there's a loss of identity of, this is the sport that raised me. I grew up in this culture. This shaped who I am as a human being. And then there's a loss of identity, which, this is the work that I'm doing. What my focus is centered around is crafting and creating that new identity so that they can wake up and not just settle for the first job they can get out of college, right? But to have something that they're waking up every day and they're excited about pursuing the same way that they did with their sport. And once I can help somebody find that, that's priceless. Then they're off to the races because they can apply that athletic identity, that athletic mindset into whatever it is they're doing in the next chapters of their lives.
Yes. Let me tell you, boy, everything that you're saying is so in alignment with what I've been saying and preaching, and some of the words that are listed in the book that I published, What Are You Sporting About, which is the inspiration for this podcast. It doesn't matter whether you're playing sports now or you're no longer playing, as the athlete. I feel like once an athlete, always an athlete, but you must figure out what it is that you're passionate about. What's your why in life? Because when you find that purpose, that is going to keep you moving forward. And with that purpose, you can do amazing things. So I think maybe sometimes athletes have been beaten with this particular identity of who they are without actually taking the time and pushing that aside and say, hold on, wait, no, let me find out who I really am. Let me find out what it is that I'm interested in. Let me find out what I'm truly passionate about. Because when you involve yourself with things that you're passionate about, the success is going to come.
Absolutely. I think that's why you and I connected and hit it off right away, because, as soon as we saw each other's missions, we realized we were really talking about the same thing, like real recognize real.
Yep, exactly. I mean, that is just so amazing. And you're right too. One thing I do love about sports is there are certain characteristics that you take away from the game. It doesn't matter how long you played, whether you just played Pop Warner, high school, college, or all the way to the pros. There is a certain level of characteristic that you take away from the game, from the team type environment. So do you have, just based around that, do you have any type of mindset tips that an athlete who may be struggling to figure out how to transition, what would be your advice to them around some of the characteristics they already have within them but haven't tapped into yet?
I think that, and that's a great point you bring up. I think that when we're talking about transferable skills or things that can kind of be carried over, I think that it's important to be able to tap into something like we just talked about, something that you're passionate about, something that you actually enjoy. And I recommend doing a lot of reflecting, because I look at it like with an athletic mindset, we can go anywhere and be top dog, right? You can go to any company, any job you land after college, you can go be like the top person there, no question. But what I run into is a lot of times people might go somewhere, put in all this work because they're like the go-getter at the office, but then get burned out because they're in the wrong career. Right. So my whole thing is being intentional, and it really ties into your message. What are you sporting about? What is your why? Right. Like I wake up every day and, I try to get the message across to former athletes that life is your new sport. Right. Ooh, so that's what we're talking about here. What are you sporting about? Like I wake up every day, life is my new sport. And hey, there's no eligibility clock. Right. Like I'm gonna still be 60, 70, 80 years old, treating life like it's a sport. So, but with that being said, there's no time limit on the rest of your life now that life is your new sport. Like there's no expiration date on that. Right. So why not start being intentional now? Right? Like it took me a few years after college to really get my footing to start to be like, okay, you know, I want to do this. And I put in a few years of grinding to get me here. But I'm trying to encourage people to start immediately. If you can start at 21, 22, 23, fresh out of college.
I know.
Me too. That's what I'm saying.
Like, man, if I could rewind that freaking clock back, it'll be so many things that I would do differently. You know, knowing what I know now. Oh my God.
Exactly. We might be doing this podcast from a yacht somewhere if we had that 22, 23.
Right. No, oh my gosh, that's the truth. But you're so on point, you know, because once you find out what it is that you're sporting about, it will help set up your life. So then what's your title? You can thrive after sports. And I think a lot of times people get hung up on the idea of I need to be in this particular situation or have this particular platform to do something. And that's not necessarily true. You need to find what it is that moves you, what it is that really will make you wake up every day to do something without getting paid for it.
Exactly.
Because if you have that much motivation, you have no other choice but to thrive.
Exactly. Yeah. No one is making that. We're not getting paid to do this podcast right now.
Right.
But, like, both of us are here taking time out of our day. There's things that we both could, you know, obviously this could lead to opportunities for us and more people listening in. But at the same time, there's things that both you and I could be doing right now that are revenue generating opportunities.
Right.
But we're here doing this for free, taking time out of both of our days because we enjoy doing it. Like I wouldn't rather be doing anything else right now. So,
and because we care about the outcome of other people's lives. So look, I'm so ready for your book to drop. Or has it dropped?
It hasn't dropped yet. Okay. We're looking at a projected official release date of end of October, but it is available for pre-order now at thriveaftersportsbook.com.
Okay. So you guys definitely make sure you're watching out for this book, Thrive After Sports, at thriveaftersports.com. And then you also mentioned Thrive After Sports program. So is that on the same website?
No, the Thrive After Sports book is separate. That's like its own website, thriveaftersportsbook.com.
Okay.
You can learn more about my website, tajdashaun.com, has the links to everything else. So there's information about the Thrive After Sports program. All my social media is on there. The podcast is on there. All that type of good stuff can be found at tajdashaun.com. So, yeah.
All right, guys. So look, that was Taj Dashaun helping athletes to transition after sports so you can thrive after sports. It's such a pleasure speaking with you, Taj, and I look forward to staying connected with you and finding ways where we can truly build value for these athletes.
Absolutely, Sivon. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate all the work you're doing, and I know this is only the beginning of us working together and collaborating. So,
yes, sir. Indeed. All right, you take care.
All right, you too.
Thanks for joining us this week on What Are You Sporting About podcast. Make sure to visit our website, prosportlawyer.com, where you can subscribe to the show in iTunes, Stitcher, or whatever your favorite platform is, so you'll never miss a show. And while you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes or iHeartRadio. Or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too. If you like the show, you might want to check out our book, What Are You Sporting About? Attorney Sivon DeBarros is available for private consulting at sldebarros.com. And remember, we're here to educate, support, and guide you in your journey to success because we're all sporting about something.